I don't get to eat a lot of fish in my house, mainly because my wife is not a big fan of fish. She comes by it honestly. As a young child, her dad and uncle, who are fishermen, they would go out fishing, and so when they would come back, with the haul, right? So they would clean the fish, and it was always her job to hold the bag where they cleaned all the fish inside into, and that really turned her off of fish. Which is really bad, because on our first date, we were living in separate cities, and she came down for some other reasons, and so we got to go out, and I thought, okay, I want to impress her, of course. I think it was maybe the only time in like 5 years of living in that apartment that my roommate and I actually cleaned the apartment, as young adults, and so she came, and so what we did is I wanted to cook dinner for her. So I thought, I want to make something kind of fancy, so what did I cook? Fish! I think it was baked Chilean sea bass. If you don't know what sea bass, it's a white, real flaky, real good, kind of spurs on her. Right? And I remember, there's probably some little rice on the side or some vegetables or something there. She came and she ate it like it was so good. It wasn't until much later. Oh, let's go out to eat. We'll go to this fish place and eat. She's like, actually, I don't like fish. I'm like, what? That was our first date. You ate it? She's like, yeah, now she says that's because I was in love. We were in love, and so much of it was because she experienced the inside of a fish as a child. It changed her. Spending time with the insides of a fish, it changed her. We're going to talk about someone for whom that happened today. If you want to go to the book of Jonah, we're not going to project it because I'm going to cover basically the whole story of Jonah, so I want to encourage you to be there. It's kind of hard to find if you're not real familiar with the Bible and New Old Testament in particular, so look there in the front if you need to. The story of Jonah. So there's a guy in the Bible, and spending time with the insides of a fish changed him, but honestly, not enough. When we teach it as a children's story, we kind of give the short version, which is, Jonah didn't want to do what God told him to do, but then he spent three days in the stomach of a big fish, and it changed him, and he did what God wanted him to do. That's really not the whole story. It's kind of the watered down version of it. We're gonna let that be true, but also look a little bit at the other side. Let's read Jonah chapter 1. I'll read the whole chapter, then we'll go back through and take a look at some points. Jonah chapter 1. It's really quite this epic adventure. The word of the Lord came to Jonah, son of Amittai. Go to the great city of Nineveh and preach against it, because its wickedness has come up before me. This is God speaking, of course. But Jonah ran away from the Lord and headed for Tarshish. He went down to Joppa, where he found a ship bound for that port. After paying the fare, he went aboard and sailed for Tarshish to flee from the Lord. See if you can't find yourself in the story. Then the Lord sent a great wind on the sea, and such a violent storm arose that the ship threatened to break up. All the sailors were afraid, and each cried out to his own God. And they threw the cargo into the sea to lighten the ship. But Jonah had gone below deck, where he lay down and fell into a deep sleep. The captain went to him and said, "How can you sleep? Get up and call on your God. Maybe he will take notice of us, and we will not perish." Then the sailors said to each other, "Come, let us cast lots to find out who is responsible for this calamity." They cast lots, and the lot fell on Jonah. So they asked him, "Tell us, who is responsible for making this trouble for us? What do you do? Where do you come from? What is your country? From what people are you?" He answered, "I am a Hebrew, and I worship the Lord, the God of heaven, who made the sea and the land." This terrified them, and they asked, what have you done?" They knew he was running from the Lord, because he had already told them so. The sea was great, getting rougher and rougher, so they asked him, "What should we do to make the sea calm down for us?" "Pick me up and throw me into the sea," he replied, "and it will become calm. I know that it is my fault that this great storm has come upon you." Instead, the men did their best to row back to land, but they could not, for the sea grew even wilder than before. Then they cried to the Lord, "Oh Lord, please do not let us taking this man's life. Do not hold us accountable for killing an innocent man, for you, O Lord, have done as you pleased. Then they took Jonah and threw him overboard, and the raging sea grew calm. At this, the men greatly feared the Lord, and they offered a sacrifice to the Lord and made vows to him. But the Lord provided a great fish to swallow Jonah, and Jonah was inside the fish 3 days and 3 nights. I hope we'll spend time actually reading through the story. We're going to have to leave out some details, but I want to go back and look at some of the details of chapter 1, some of the highlights of the rest of the story, and look particularly at how they might apply to us. From the stomach of this fish, Jonah has a change of will, but not a change of heart. A change of will is good, but it is not enough. A change of will is a beginning, but it is not complete. God is after a change of heart. So what happens is, chapter 2 is basically a long prayer. It's actually his second prayer. His first prayer comes, if you look at chapter 2, verse 1. In my distress, I called to the Lord. So he's in the water, they've thrown him overboard. He's about to drown. You know what a great feeling that is. And from the depth of the grave, I called for help. The same prayer is mentioned over in chapter 7, verse 7 of chapter 2. When my life was ebbing away, I remembered you, Lord, and my prayer rose to you. So he's been thrown overboard, and he's praying, okay, God, help me, save me, save me. And I think it's kind of funny, God's answer to that prayer. Okay, I'll save you. The language of verse 17 is funny to me. But the Lord provided. Usually when we look at the word provide, we think it is something as positive and benevolent, right? It was provided for me. And I think, how funny that God provided salvation, saving for Jonah, but probably in an unexpected way. I'm guessing if you ask Jonah, what are 3 ways you'd like to be saved here in this raging storm, out in the calm of the ocean, I'm guessing being swallowed by a fish was not high on the list. You know, if I'm Jonah, I'm thinking, I don't know, orange Coast Guard boat, helicopter, I might find a helicopter, maybe one of those. Fish would not be on my list. Maybe you know the story of the man who was caught in a flood. He climbed up onto his roof and he was going to be rescued. So he was a believer, so he was praying, God, I trust in you, even through this storm, and I'm praying that you rescue me, that you save me. And so a large log went by, and he thought, maybe I should get on that. I said, no, I trust in the Lord. The Lord will send something to save me. Later, some guys come by on a Zodiac, on a raft, and he said, over here to save you. Get it. Oh, no, I'm a Christian. I'm going to trust the Lord. I pray, and I believe God's going to bring some salvation to me. So finally, the water keeps getting higher and higher. He's higher up on the peak of his house, and a helicopter comes, lowers down the cage, and said, get in the cage. He said, no, God's going to save me. Well, the water keeps getting higher, he drowns. So he gets to heaven, and he asks God, I had such faith in you, I knew you were going to save me. Why didn't you save me? He said, I sent you a log, a boat, and a helicopter. What else did you want me to do? And so the same thing is true. I'm guessing that Jonah didn't expect to be saved in the way that God provided for him. Doesn't sometimes salvation come in very unexpected ways? I hope you're looking. Whether you've never accepted Christ and you're looking for a different way to live, you're looking for a way to wash away that guilt of sin that you know just kind of gnaws at you, that you know you're not right with God, you know you're not at peace with Him. And it might come to an unlikely place. Maybe this morning is that unlikely place. Maybe you came just for the food. Or maybe you came just to make auntie or uncle happy, or to make mom and dad happy. Could this be the unlikely place where God is trying to give you His word? We get a second prayer. Chapter 2, verse 1 says, from inside the fish, Jonah prayed to the Lord his God. And there's this long prayer about, and it's basically him coming to terms of saying, no, I know what I did back in chapter 1. What you have to keep in mind is that Jonah is an Israelite. Israelites hate Ninevites. That's kind of the sworn enemy, okay? And Ninevites don't like Israelites. And so when God says, I'm going to send you, Jonah, an Israelite, to go to the Ninevites and teach them about, to try to tell them to turn from their evil, but also to teach them about me, about my love for them. I want them to be in a relationship